Life often feels like a series of challenges. Some difficulties are visible to everyone: losing a job, heartbreak, illness, or family struggles. But Carl Jung believed there is a much deeper, invisible test that the soul must endure. This test is not something others can easily recognize. It is not measured by social success, career achievements, or even the approval of loved ones. Instead, it is a silent, inner trial that reshapes the way a person lives, thinks, and relates to the world. When someone passes this soul's most painful test, they do not become perfect or free from suffering. Instead, they change in fundamental ways that make them stronger, more authentic, and more whole. Jung described this process as individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, not the self that society, family, or even your younger self expected you to be. Here are 7 signs that you may have passed through this deep psychological transformation. 1. Solitude becomes a sanctuary. For many people, being alone feels like punishment. Loneliness often drives us to seek constant distraction, endless scrolling on phones, surrounding ourselves with people, or chasing approval. But once you have passed through the soul's test, solitude no longer feels empty. Instead, you discover that being alone can be peaceful and creative. You stop running away from yourself. Silence and stillness are no longer frightening. They become spaces where your deepest insights emerge. You might notice that you are less dependent on external validation. You don't need to prove your worth by being busy, social, or endlessly productive. Your nervous system calms down, and you stop scattering your energy in desperate searches for approval. This change creates a paradox. The more comfortable you are with yourself, the more attractive you become to others. People sense your calm presence. They feel drawn to you, not because you are trying to impress them, but because you radiate a quiet stability that many are missing in their own lives. 2. You accept and integrate your shadow. Jung's famous idea of the shadow is the hidden side of ourselves, the impulses, emotions, and traits we usually deny. Anger, jealousy, the desire to control others, or the fear of being weak are often pushed away. Most people try to repress these traits, pretending they don't exist, but repression doesn't make them disappear. Instead, they show up unconsciously in harmful ways: explosive outbursts, manipulative behavior, or unhealthy relationships. Passing the soul's painful test means you stop rejecting your shadow. Instead, you face it with honesty. You begin to see that these dark impulses are not bad, but sources of raw energy. For example, like anger, once destructive, transforms into a sacred fire that burns away toxic relationships or limiting beliefs. The hunger for power becomes the courage to take control of your own life. The ability to wound becomes the ability to set sharp, necessary boundaries. This doesn't mean you glorify destructive impulses. Instead, you learn to channel them wisely. By integrating your shadow, you become whole. Others sense this as authenticity. They feel your integrity, even if you never say a word. 3. You become immune to projection. One of the most common human behaviors is projection. This is when someone unconsciously dumps their unresolved emotions onto others. For example, a person who feels insecure may accuse you of being judgmental. Someone who cannot admit their anger may label you as too aggressive. In the past, these projections might have hooked you. You could have been pulled into drama, arguments, or endless emotional games. But after transformation, you develop a kind of emotional immunity. You notice when someone is projecting onto you. Instead of taking it personally, you see it as data, simply a reflection of how the other person's psyche works. You no longer feel the need to fight, prove yourself, or rescue them. This shift also changes the way you experience compassion. Before, you may have practiced codependent compassion, sacrificing yourself to help others. Now your compassion is mature. You can be present with someone suffering without losing yourself in it. Boundaries become natural. You no longer make other people's crises your responsibility. Others might see this as coldness, but you know it as clarity. You are protecting your energy while still respecting the dignity of others. 4. Your intuition deepens. Another sign of transformation is the awakening of deep intuition. Before, you may have relied heavily on logic, lists of pros and cons, or external advice. But now you discover an inner knowing that guides you with surprising accuracy. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, begin to appear more often in your life. You sense that events are connected by a greater intelligence, not just by chance. Your sensitivity expands. You read between the lines when people speak. You notice the emotions hidden beneath their words. You sense the true motivations in situations, not through suspicion, but through subtle awareness. Decision-making becomes less stressful. Instead of endless analysis, you trust your inner guidance. You feel connected not only to your own experience, but also to a larger field of wisdom, what Jung called the collective unconscious. This intuition is not about fortune-telling or magical thinking. It is about learning to listen to the quiet, trustworthy voice within, rather than being pushed around by ego or fear. 5. You embrace cycles of death and rebirth. Life is not a straight line of progress. It is cyclical, full of endings and beginnings. But for many people, endings feel terrifying. Losing a job, moving on from a relationship, or changing identity feels like death. After passing the soul's painful test, you stop resisting these cycles. You realize that every ending is also a beginning. You learn to trust the process of death and rebirth. Periods of uncertainty no longer scare you as much. Instead of demanding guarantees, you step into the unknown with curiosity. You stop scattering your energy across too many commitments. Like a wise gardener, you invest your energy only where growth is possible. Your creativity also shifts. You no longer create just to impress others or prove your worth. Instead, creativity becomes a sacred act, a way to express your inner truth and connect with life itself. 6. You let go of external validation. Much of human behavior is driven by the desire for approval. We measure ourselves by comparison. Smarter, richer, more attractive, more successful. Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Jung, called this the inferiority complex. When you pass the inner test, this complex dissolves. You stop comparing yourself constantly. External praise and criticism affect you less. They register only as information, not as verdicts about your worth. This frees enormous energy. You no longer waste time managing your image or performing for acceptance. Instead, you live from inner authority, the ability to validate yourself without depending on others. This change also grounds you in your body. You move through the world with quiet confidence, as if you belong to yourself first. Rejection no longer feels like devastation, because you would rather be rejected for your true self than accepted for a mask. 7. You protect your energy. The final sign of passing the soul's painful test is the development of energetic sovereignty. This means you no longer give your time, energy, and attention to people or situations that drain you. Instead of feeling guilty about boundaries, you see them as natural, like protecting a precious resource. You become selective about where you show up and who you invest in. This is not arrogance. It is wisdom. Others may sense a natural authority in you. You don't need to dominate or control. Your strength comes from self-mastery. You radiate a calm presence that others find magnetic. Your relationship with suffering also changes. Instead of avoiding pain, you meet it consciously. Pain becomes a teacher. Wounds become wisdom. You no longer fear hardship because you know it can shape you into someone deeper and more resilient. Conclusion: the quiet transformation. Passing your soul's most painful test does not look like a celebration. There are no trophies, certificates, or applause. Instead, the change is subtle but powerful. You are at peace in solitude. You have befriended your shadow. You see through projections. You listen to intuition. You trust life's cycles. You live from inner authority. You protect your energy. This transformation is not about escaping pain, but about engaging with it consciously. As Jung wrote, the soul grows not despite suffering, but through it. If you recognize these signs in yourself, know that you have undergone something rare and profound. You have experienced a second psychological birth. You carry the quiet dignity of someone who has met themselves completely. Not perfect, but whole. And this is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new chapter of conscious living, where your life serves not only your own growth, but also becomes a beacon for others seeking their path.